welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another Coffee and the Word with
PRP
and PJP. My cup says unstoppable. So I'm going to give you a few seconds for you to grab your coffee as I shout out Arlene from Come Connect Church. She was the one that helped us with our title. She suggested that we added coffee and
the Word
with PRP-n-PJP. Thank you, Arlene. We love you.
Thank you, Arlene.
So today we're going to talk about the topic, is it a mess?
Or a message.
Ask the person next to you, is it a mess?
Or a message.
How many times have you been a mess or you created a mess? And today God wants to turn that mess around.
Yes, He does.
God has a way of taking that which is no good and turning it around.
So in other words, He takes something that was meant for evil and turn it for good.
So today we're going to read in the first chapter of Genesis, which is the first story of creation that we find in the Bible. And we're going to discover the intent of this story and how it is, how His intent to show that God is
a God of order.
And that His design for our lives is one of order and not of chaos.
In other words, putting things where they belong in its place.
So it is only within the confines of order that we will thrive and fulfill the purpose which God created you and I for us. So in Genesis 1 and 2, in the NIV, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and in the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. So in the beginning, the writer, the author in the beginning says that God created the heavens and the earth. So in the beginning, what happened?
There was nothing. There was no matter, no energy, no time, no space. There was nothing except God.
So in other words, the interesting part of Genesis 1 is that most people, they overlook, and even though they've read this dozens of times, that in this chapter, Genesis 1, it doesn't start at the very beginning. And in the very beginning, there was really nothing.
In other words, when we get to verse 2, we don't know how long it took to get to verse 2 from verse 1, verse 2, and how we get to where we are now.
So in Genesis 1:2, it says that the earth is there, except it is formless and empty.
And what is the Hebrew word for that?
So the Hebrew word for the word formless and empty is tohu wavohu.
Which means?
Which means formless and empty. In other words, it is an extreme chaos.
In other words, you're in a mess. I mean, it's so deep that it was so dark that there was no way out. No way out.
So the chaos was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, there was
matter, but out of place. There was energy, out of place.
So these two verses refer something as deep as the primordial sea, right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, an ocean that had chaotic movement with no form and no order. It was just a swirling mass of energy and matter.
I mean, it was a mess.
So from this chaos, the tohu wahu, this was an incredible chaos. But God was about to do something amazing.
Amazing. That's because even though it's a chaos and it was confusion, God is in the midst of that chaos because His Spirit hover over this chaos. And we see that out of that, He created everything else after that.
So in the midst of chaos, because the Spirit of God hovers over it, in all these things and at all times, God is there. And today we want to focus on the chaos and the tohu wohu of your life. We don't know what chaos you're in. We don't know what difficulties you're dealing with. But I know that in about 1.5 years ago, we were in a tohu wohu. Our lives were in a chaos. Yes, we've been married for 25 years. 25 years.
I mean, it was a mess, but it was such a mess that we had to go our separate ways.
We didn't know if we were going to be able to survive this, because I have never seen a tohu wahu in my life. In other words, it was formless and chaotic. But our God was so amazing. Our God was so amazing that he just outdid himself. And just like the Bible tells us that he is able to turn the bad into good, that's what he did with us. We thought we had no hope. We thought we were done. But our God came in time.
And I know what you're asking yourself. You're probably saying to yourself that, why me? Why am I going through this? How is it God allowed things like me? After all that I've done, let me tell you, I could say the same thing. 20 plus years, almost 30 years already working in the ministry. And this came right in the middle of all that, this chaos and mess that we could have given up. But guess what? God showed up.
God showed up in the midst of our tohu wahu, and he hovered over our marriage. He hovered over our family. He hovered over our lives, and he turned things around. What the enemy meant for bad, God turned it into good. And today we want to tell you that whatever chaos you're in, whatever difficulty you're in, our God is able to turn all things, anything, any chaos, any difficulty, any situation, he is able to turn it to good.
Let me tell you what he told me. He told me this, that all the stuff that we're going through is for him to show us that he is God and he can do anything. He can turn your mess into a message.
So today ask yourself, is your mess a mess, or is it a message?